What you want to do is either captivate an audience in a human aspect, or you want to make something that delivers on your X factors. So what sets you apart from the other company? You need to have a craft a story around something that's going to get somebody emotional. And even within that part, you can go tug at the heartstrings. You can make something that makes people really strongly agree, like, yes, this is awesome, almost like the Red Bull content. We call it shock and awe. Or you can deliver on that lifestyle. There's a million companies saying that they're adventure and luxury boats, but then how do you show it? Are you going to show it to like a normal Sunday at the sandbar with your friends? Or are you going to say, let's make a trip over to the Bermuda Triangle? That's what this boat brand stands for. So when I check out of work, you have two options.
You're listening to the Rising Tidecast, the podcast for sharing the stories, the lessons, and all the good stuff from legends in the marine industry. Welcome to the Rising Tidecast. I'm Steve from Rising Tide Film, and today's guest, super stoked to have Captain Art Hill on the podcast. He's also the captain over at Rogue Marine Business Advisors. They help marine brands with digital marketing strategy and execution. So welcome, Art.
I appreciate it, man.
I just asked Art if I should call him Captain Art Hill or just Art Hill, and he gave me the best response. What did you say, Art?
It's basically, I only use it at restaurants when I'm trying to get a reservation or at a fishing tournament when I win. But at a boat show or something, it's just Art.
That's awesome. I love that. I found Art through social media a few years ago. Unfortunately, I've only got to be in his physical presence once for about a minute and a half at Flibs last year. But his energy and attitude are infectious. He's a well-loved guy in the industry, really skilled at what he and his team do. And he's got some fantastic ideas and perspectives around content and strategies, specifically for marine businesses, which is awesome. So we'll try not to geek out too much over all things marketing, as a great marketer does. So one of the first things I do for this podcast is I asked guests for a few words to help with their intro. And Art has used a masterful hook and opened a story gap for me that I've been wanting to close basically since I read it. So well done, Art. He wrote, who knew going to a baby shower could completely change your career? So, Art, I'm dying to know what happened.
So, a while ago now, I was working in an advertising agency. We were doing a bunch of ads and stuff for Hertz Rental Car and McDonald's and all these big national brands, as one does. And my wife gets invited to one of our coworkers' baby shower. So her name's Jessica Fox. Her baby shower was awesome. And when we go there, the husband introduced me to his friend. He was just like, hey, Art, he likes boats and you like fishing. Why don't y'all two talk? And I'm like, okay, cool. So I walk up to this guy, and it is Joe Lazara of the Lazara Yachting, one of the premier legacy yacht builders in the world, let alone like here in Florida. So him and I, of course, get to talking, and we start talking fishing. And long story short, he invites me to a yacht that he had just helped build, and he wanted me to come on as his guest, to meet some other people in the industry. And that's when I started meeting people. It was a wrap after that. I mean, how does that happen? It couldn't get more perfect.
That's so awesome. This whole industry is so much about the network, isn't it? It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also just the coincidences of how things like that happen. I just absolutely love that. Like, the whole business I've built, and it sounds like the business you built too, is just about who you know and those chance coincidences when you do meet someone else. And I love that about it because it's such a tight-knit community already. And the circles within there are, I think, something really amazing about the marine industry.
That's for sure. It's even kind of a weird thing. So when people come and go, obviously you'll see a lot of that on LinkedIn, but some people usually get sucked back in. They might leave for a year or two, and then what do you know? They get sucked right back into the marine industry globally. So it's a pretty small community, but boy, do we try and have some fun.
That's what it's all about, man. Well, take me back to the start. When was it that I guess the ocean or being out on a boat entered your life?
Oh, I mean, we've been doing it since I was in diapers. Literally, I have pictures in diapers, fishing on the bank with my father and grandmother with like little cane poles. So I've been fishing and boating all my life. And it wasn't until, growing up in agency land, being really, really stressed out, uh, that I started going more extreme fishing, right? So just growing up freshwater, it was fine, but it wasn't until I moved to Florida and really got into the offshore fishing, then started doing tournaments, and then from tournaments, people started asking, like, "Hey, what do you do?" And then I explained. They were like, "Oh, we hate our marketing people. They use all these big words. Can you help? Can you help explain to me what they're even talking about?" And you know, it was consulting, and I had no idea what that even meant. I was just, it's what I did for work. So it was easy.
Totally. And you know what? I think that passion is something that's like a key within people that are successful in this industry. And it's not only like I think the passion for the work that we're doing, but it adds like a care factor that's really unique that really makes you stand out amongst the rest, you know? And you're relatable because you're in the industry. I've heard so many times of people hiring people outside of the industry for the marine, marketing, and they just have different experiences, not the best, and they don't know what that is until they talk to somebody that like gets them, that uses the words that they understand, right?
Exactly.
It's a night and day experience that's very different.
Yep. And what we've noticed is that it even translates down to how they're marketing to their customers, right? So a lot of like big agencies or something, they have teams of people that may not be familiar with just the ins and outs of what a boater really understands and what they're really going through. So essentially, you and I know you're not going to market Viking 60 the same way you're going to market a pontoon boat, but some people think that those customers are the same, and you and I know they couldn't be more different. So I think that's just a great starting point to saying, like, what you're making for these people really matters, and understanding what their pain points and frustrations are comes through in the end.
100%. I would also love to see a pontoon getting dragged behind a Viking 90C or something. That'd be fantastic.
That would be
What a photo
fantastic.
shoot.
Exactly.
So tell me, I'm starting in the ad world, and you have that insight in a different industry in the ad space.
Mhm.
What was that like for you? Like, what were some of those projects you worked on?
We work with big brands like Transition Lenses, Hertz Rental Car, McDonald's. Uh, it was Medieval Times, like just some really big corporate brands, as well as some little people. But for me, that was more like on a personal, like, hey, I have a my buddy opened a bait shop, and he was just like, I don't even have business cards. I don't know what to do. I know I need to be on Google. Can you help? So it kind of ran the gamut. But from college, I've been a classically trained like digital web designer, digital director, from really managing, $30 million budgets, from paid media to what does $150,000 website look like? Because even at that price point, you're still not going to get everything you need. So, I mean, it's run the gamut from email marketing to web to understanding. Okay, let's step back and look at a big strategy and think, what does all of this mean and where should we focus on? I'll even give you a story. One time I was called into a meeting, and it was just our CEO, a couple consultants, and one of the basically the client, the head of Hertz Rental Car marketing at the time. And I thought I was there for email marketing, like, or they're gonna figure out some website problems. And we were in there for like 8 hours. And basically what it boiled down to, what it was us and some bigwig strategy consultants from New York who had just started their own thing, and they were bragging about how they've been to Paris so many times, like it was just not even a thing. But they remember being young at 25 and loving it. And then one of the takeaways was that, and I'm sure the Statue of limitations probably ended up by now. So I
Yeah,
can't
yeah, you're
I
clear.
can
You're
give
clear.
some detail, but not too much, right? But basically, it was back when airports were having a problem, and Hertz being the market leader, they were noticing from the field reps were saying, "Hey, we're losing out on cancellations from people not booking their cars right away because they're getting off their plane and standing in this long line, and they have to wait. Meanwhile, all the other rental car counters are right next to them, and they have no wait. So even people have already reserved their car, but they weren't completing the booking. So that was a big problem. Now, if you think if it was just a tactical thing, it was like, oh, we'll do some emails or push notifications through the app, like some really progressive things at the time, but it was normal. But the strategist chimed up and it was just like, look, if that's the problem, why don't we just build an app and have a service, that same service rep walk in the line and check people in? Now they don't have to wait. And matter of fact, 2 years down the road, we can create like little seating areas to where we'll come to them and we'll have a little sign up for them. So then my whole thing was like, oh my gosh, that just saved them how many millions of dollars in lost rentals just from that one sentence alone. So for me as a email marketing person at the time and director at the time, I was like strategy is everything because you have to solve that problem and figure out what's the least amount of effort we can do to make a really big impact on the business. So even from that point, I was hooked. I'm like, this is the meetings I need to be in. We need to figure that out. So yeah.
The plan is key, and understand. I think
Mhm.
that's so cool because understanding, your customer problems
Mhm.
sometimes is very different, right, than the problems that you think that they're having.
For sure.
And
For
so
sure.
that research that went into finding that and then being able to solve that, like those are the things that make the big differences.
For sure.
And then finding creative and fun ways to do that. That's very awesome.
Yep.
So what in that ad space too, when you were there, what parts of being in the ad space and working with big budget things like that, what similarities do you see to the marine space that we work in now?
Well, the similarities seem like it almost seems comical because at the end of the day, it really does boil down to people, right? So Hertz essentially was travel, but a lot of times people would go to the social media sites and just complain about their experience. Same thing in some of our regular businesses as well. Like people will come to, a boating brand social media to complain about either service or something not being held up. And us as marketers, we
Yep,
have to take
engine not
that
starting.
all of the things, right? The similarities of the pain points and how you address those situations, that correlated every time. So, like I mentioned earlier, that strategic standpoint of saying, okay, what does their life look like with our product? What does it look like without our product? And how can we use those insights to then make either fun creative or create urgency to get them to do what we want to do? So that's the similarities.
It's a fun process too. What I guess I came from an outside perspective as well. Like I haven't been in the marine industry forever,
Hmm.
and I know there's plenty of differences that are very, very different from a commercial standpoint as
Hmm.
far as what people do in agency land and then
Hmm.
what the marine industry is used to doing. And
Hmm.
you guys working with a bunch of bigger clients too. What do you see that's drastically different about the ad land and agency land versus what's kind of the norm in the marine industry?
Well, the budgets are massively different, right? From corporate, these Fortune 100 companies have huge budgets, but a lot of the time they're still boiled down to just a few people that are doing the work, and the timeline to execute is much different. So if there's a big initiative, sometimes it takes 6 months, 8 months, a year. Well, even as a small business owner yourself, we don't have that time or luxury. So we need to think, act, and then react to some of the things that are happening much faster. So I think that delta of even thinking going from TV, corporate, hundreds of thousands and or millions of viewers boils down to for like a smaller brokerage, it's how do we market within a 10-mile radius to make sure we own this section and we sell as many boats as possible. And then how do we bring in the right partners to match what that area needs, right? Not every area is going to be set up for, big oversized sport fisher, but if you're near a freshwater lake, you need to bring the right, you know, product in as well, and then figure out how to market to that local people.
Yeah, that expertise in the industry is definitely where that comes in. I think that's
Yeah.
super insightful. Yeah, you don't want to be talking to everybody, as you know, just the people that matter, right?
For sure.
I'm interested because you've had quite a few clients over the years, and quite a few different jobs.
Mm-hmm.
What's like one of the coolest jobs that you've had in your eyes? Like, what's something that was really fun to work on in the marine industry?
I don't know if it was like a project. It was more of like an experience. So last year was my first time going over to the Cannes Yachting Festival and seeing the delta of how the international boat shows operate versus the Flibs and the Miamis and all of these, US boat shows. While they're great, there's a drastic difference in culture, you know, just judging the two. So that was like the biggest experience seeing like, you know, they take siestas during the day. They are really everybody is dressed to the nines. I mean, there are models everywhere. Men, women, old people, like everybody's gorgeous, essentially. And in America, like we'll rock up to a super yacht in, a polo and some khakis, and you look exactly like the
Tracksuit, yeah.
billionaire. So it's like you
Yeah.
don't really know who's has it uh on this side of the pond. So that was one of the biggest experience. But I would say from a job standpoint, kind of right when I got started, a buddy of mine who is now kind of running the fishing team with me, he works as an airport kind of he does the air traffic control baggage stuff, and like he works in the office for them. And he was saying how he wanted to retire and get his captain's license and kind of start chartering. And he's like, but I don't have a logo, I don't have a business card, I need a website. And I'm like, hey, here's an idea. I can help you do those
Yeah.
things, and we can do
Yeah.
some cash up front, and then trade on some fishing trips. So he's like, really? He's like, I catch 200 pounds of grouper at one spot, and I'm like, man, ain't no way.
Okay.
Like that, yeah, yeah. You got my attention, but like I'm calling your bluff. And sure enough, he whips out his
Yeah.
phone and shows me pictures, and I'm like, all right, so when would you like to get started?
Get the film crew. Let's go.
Let's go. This is the real one.
How good's that?
Yeah. Oh man, we've been fishing for probably 9 years now. Just because that was once that happened, it was like, oh, you were obsessed about fishing, just like I'm obsessed about fishing. Now it was almost a brotherhood at that point. So now it's we go hard.
That's awesome. And what's his business look like? Did you ended up helping him
Yeah.
out and stuff? And
Yep. Fishing condition charters. And that was a thing too. So the funny part of that is like we did some Instagram stuff, we did the website, and I was just like, if we really want to dial it up, let's run some paid ads. And I want to say they were up for about 48 hours. And he was just like, Art, I don't know what you did, but you need to cut that shit off. I mean, he was like, I've been getting so many phone calls from tourists trying to book rental charters. He's like, I'm still working at the airport. I don't have that many days to like take these people fishing. So it was kind of a natural progression of him saying, hey, I know this system works. This is awesome. It'll be here when I'm ready, but we need to take a pause on the chartering standpoint and let me kind of keep my normal job, the wife happy, the insurance. But he was just like, he was blown away. So for me, that was the most like validation of saying like, hey, that's my buddy, my brother, and I got to like really help him see what an end could look like versus, all of some of the more glamorous stuff with the yachts and the super yachts. all those things are great, but it can kind of get um, you kind of lose perspective on who's really benefiting in the end, if you know what I mean.
Oh man, it's all about that personal connection. I think
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
especially if you know the guy and you help him and you can see that success. Like that's what I love about this job too. Is working with people that you have that personal connection to or relationship with, and seeing how what you do really helps them out and
Mm-hmm.
like helps them grow and get to where they want to go. That's definitely one of the best things about I think the job and the impact that we can have from the marketing side of things to get
Mm-hmm.
people to where they want to go. It's super special. The story you told reminded me of this time we were in Puerto Rico. I was on a shoot and
Mm-hmm.
we were looking for a charter. And on like first page of Google, um, all these reviews, all this guy, we were texting him and he was out fishing, but he had his like autoresponder on. He was fully set
Mm-hmm.
up, the whole
Mm-hmm.
marketing thing. He had like a million 5-star reviews.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was probably a sponsored result in
Mm-hmm.
like a Google search.
Mm-hmm.
And man, he was onto it. And I think for charter captains too, it's sometimes, they're looking to book like at least here, I guess smaller seasons, for instance, like up on the reef. You only have your limited time slot of multi-day liveaboard charters, or
Mm-hmm.
even in Sydney where, you're chartered and you want to go out all the time. I think that's something that is often overlooked, right? The fact that digital advertising and putting money behind ad spend is also really necessary, besides just making cool Instagram posts of like, all the fish you're catching and the experience, right? It does
Yeah.
take a bit of extra effort to really reach. And then also backing it up with the whole like experience of getting back to people,
Mm-hmm.
showing how great your charters are and how great of an experience that people have in different ways. I'm interested too because you've had a really awesome journey so far. If you zoom out and you think about a key moment that helped shape your business or who you are and what you do,
Mm-hmm.
what's one that sticks out to you?
That's a big question. It's a big
It
question.
is. There's a lot of moments in there.
Now, I would say from a business standpoint or from a like a fish story standpoint. You know what I mean? Like, because there's it
I'm
can
in,
go
I'm
either
in for
way.
either or both.
From a business standpoint, the can I kind of touched on it earlier. The Cannes Yachting Festival was an eye opener for me. Like, it was already shocking to go from an ad world to being fully on your own business wise, and then going up through meeting all of these people in the States selling boats and doing that stuff. But then it was like another word of like, okay, well, because our clients are international now and they have needs over here, I can get paid to fly other places, countries I've never been before, and use my skills in that market to then advertise back to people in the United States. So that was an eye opener because I hadn't really thought about going that wide with it. But as you know, the end customer is the same. And even with the manufacturing and the partners, like these boats move all the time. So it was really nice to see. And even from the LinkedIn people that I got to connect with, even when I got there, if I didn't have those connections already, I wouldn't have been able to check into my hotel because my phone wasn't working. So so from a business standpoint, it was like, okay, what do I do now? But because I'd already made those relationships, I could see where the festival was. So I just walked down to the hill. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find somebody. And I wasn't even like 10 feet into the thing before I found some people that were able to speak English and help me figure out the whole SIM card. And that was a good little like eye opener for me.
It's nice because it backs up what we were talking about before too about the
Mhm.
industry and how everyone is. It is about your network, but everyone. Maybe I'm lucky, but I haven't met many people who don't want to help out and who aren't
Right.
just kind and will try and help you as much as they can with what they can. Like it's a wonderful thing to experience that even on the other side of the world when you're in
Hmm.
a little bit of confusion and trouble. I think that's awesome. You talked about a fish story before. I Do you have a favorite story on the water?
Yeah, and it was more of like a scary moment that could have ended bad. Like it was same with that same captain, Captain Richard Hartman. We're about 40 miles off the Gulf of Mexico, right? We're fishing for kingfish and amberjacks, and there are a bunch of big sharks and stuff. And we're going through it, right? But it's just us two. And all of a sudden, a school of amberjack swims up in our bait, and we got three lines going off, and I got two rods that I'm holding like this, and they're running, and the Captain Richard has one on the side, and he's catching his fish. He just finishes winding his amberjack in and takes the hooks off, and I hand him one of the two rods so he can reel in, and he goes, get another bait back out there because we're trying to catch kingfish. So I'm holding this rod in one hand and the amberjack still running around, and I get another uh, big blue runner on the hook, and I go to throw it out, but it doesn't throw out good. So I set the rod down and think, oh, he's right next to the boat, and let me just reel this one in really quick. So I put the rod in the rod holder, not thinking that there was a big barracuda that was sitting underneath the boat for the last 35 minutes, just waiting to try and steal our snapper and stuff, right? It wasn't 2 seconds when I put the rod down that all of a sudden I hear that. And all I see is this. I'm looking and I'm seeing this slow motion, this 6-foot barracuda flying through the air over the back of the boat, headed right towards Captain Richard as he has his head turned and is chomping the bait in midair, chomping the blue runner. And I'm like, the amount of fear, I could see it happening. I'm like, if this fish hits him, teeth out, we're 40 miles from help. I'm already calling the Coast Guard in my mind. I'm like, he's gonna bleed out. This is bad. Like nothing good can happen this far away. Now I'm in charge. I gotta do all this shit. So luckily, the fish was inches away from hitting him, falls in the water on the other side of the boat, and just takes the rod and tears it off. We get the rod back, we catch the fish, and we have the picture. I'll show it to you. But it was insane. Insane. I was just like, you could have died. Like, and we both like looked at each other like, okay, it's getting a little hairy now. Like, there's too many fish around, too many things are going on. We need to scale it back. And that was, to me, I was just like, this is a dangerous, dangerous thing that can go literally so wrong so fast.
Man,
that's the
that's
story.
Crazy. I've seen those photos of those kudas and stuff just jumping, just launching in the air.
Mm-hmm.
To have one about to hit your friend's face. Not a great time. Not a great time.
Not fun. Not fun.
What was he saying after that?
Literally, yeah, we looked at each other. It was like a moment of silence. Like we both realized, like, okay, we literally were inches away from it's hitting the fan. So we need to scale it back. So we kind of took a pause, reeled the rods back in, and then just started fishing like one rod, one rod for each of us. But yeah, I mean, he was literally like, don't tell the wives. Like they can't know.
Certain stories, there's definitely a few in the bank that are staying out there. I'm just thinking about challenges like that. Is there a challenge that you guys are going through now as far as the digital landscape that you guys are experiencing? Not so much barracuda in the face level. The industry obviously is changing a lot with AI and everything like that. So I'm curious from your end, from the strategy side and the digital marketing side, what are you guys dealing with now and what are you doing about it?
That's a good question. I think a lot of it is kind of the ongoing challenges with marketing. Who are the customers? How many can we get in front of? How do we track those results? And like, how do we make the most bang for our buck is always a challenge, right? So I think with AI, it's interesting because even from a social media landscape, you're seeing some people kind of mail it in almost too much using AI. And you can see that, hey, ChatGPT definitely wrote this copy. It's 32 emojis in it. It's 5 pages long. And it was just like a Happy Tuesday post. Like, what is that? Like.
Just do some editing. Just make it a little personal, please.
Please. So I think that is going to solve itself. But, I think one of the big opportunities is that people need to realize that you still have to maintain it and do create content that is for your end customer, and then talk about the problems that your business solves. So a lot of times people can get caught up in the hype of trending videos, or what's really hype, or what's get a lot of clicks or a lot of followers. But at the end of the day, we're gonna be the ones at the seat of the table with your CFO and some of your board members are saying, like, did this work? Did this not work? What where should we invest more in? So we have to have those tangible business centric uh, case studies to really show an impact. And if we can do that, then they can invest more into what's clearly working. So I think that there has to be a a thought process of being intentional about what we're making. And then again, not disrespecting AI to try and look for shortcuts.
Leveraging it in a way that makes it, I guess, better for you, right? Like that makes it easier, or enhances what you can do.
For sure. And I absolutely use it for enhancing your creative, use it for idea generations. But if you're using it to try and get off early so you can go to happy hour, that's not, you can usually see what that looks like with the end result. But I would say just that takeaway of also realizing that AI is going to get better. So it's machine learning that people don't understand. Some people kind of downplay it. I'm thinking it's going to be a great tool. You should start to learn how to use it now.
One of the things I think I find a lot of enjoyment is showing people that haven't really experienced it and going, "Look, what is it that you spend your day doing that's like these tasks like on the computer that you just hate doing that take so much time, whether it's figuring out changes in product price over the years and giant spreadsheets, or figuring out inventory stuff, or hey, you want to do a quick summary of this job that you did. Give me the facts. I'll write it for you. I'll copy paste the other descriptions so they're in your tone of language. I'll put all these facts in, and then people are just like,
Yeah.
"What? Are you
Blown away.
kidding me?" But to your point too, it's super important to take that as a first draft or an idea generation thing and then make it yours, because it's never going to be right, but it is a fantastic tool to use. And I'm really excited too, because I think it was going to get to a point that we're going to be able to make new boat content, putting boats wherever you want to. I think that's fantastic for some content, but then other stuff, it always needs to be authentic. I think that story piece, which is the authenticity and the story behind the brands or the boats or what they enable the people to do, and tying that back to the customer journey and creating that content for with an end in mind for that
Hmm.
user journey, right? Or for the problems that the business wants to solve. And I'm interested because you get to see so much of that, right? From the ad side, from the brand building side, from the this is our immediate objective to this is a long term brand building strategy. Um, what do you think that works that really moves the needle for marine businesses on number one, the ad side of things now, and then number two after that, like the brand building side of things?
Yeah. So I think people always try and look at it as two different levels, almost like a sales and marketing, and they want it to be kind of completely different. But in actuality, you need both, like some kind of mix of both. So it's really almost personal to the business. So like if you're a big brokerage and you have a lot of awareness, then you can spend more on ads just because you want to transact. That's strategic, and you can understand what content you need to put out or where you need to invest in. But if you're a newer business and you're smaller and nobody knows you exist, well, now you need to go out and kind of create and invest a lot more in awareness. So then you're going to look and sound and act different to get as much attention as possible. And then you can kind of innovate on the sales side once you start getting some people in. So you definitely need to kind of look at it on a case by case basis and then kind of start from there, because not everybody, there's no one size fits all. answer for everyone, but all of our clients, we kind of do it almost just like that on a case by case basis. Some people are all organic because they already have a massive following and they know who their customers, and they have a phenomenal sales team that follows up and they do a lot of stuff. All the automation is there, but then they're missing that middle piece of, well, why does it matter if we buy it from you? So what are your expertise look like? What does the team look like? What experience do I want to have when I come and work with you directly? And then how is, when I buy this product, is that going to make me see my future self? Meaning, like, if I'm a busy CEO and I know that this one brand, a lot of other CEOs that are family men kind of buy, and I want to be like that, how can that boat kind of deliver on that promise, right? Serving that person an ad talking about the features is not going to get him. He already knows you exist, and the boats essentially are all the same, just with different cup holders. So we need to really deliver back on that expertise, you know. So that's kind of where I say we need to figure out where you're landing.
Yeah, so that I think that aspirational identity part too, and the telling the story of like how these people are going to use the boats. That's
Mm-hmm,
something that's really powerful, right? I love that you
mm-hmm,
said it's just all the same but different cup holders. That's fantastic. Um, but that aspirational identity part of things, like telling the story of there's a way to tell the story of the features in that
mm-hmm,
way. So
mm-hmm,
these are the things that are on this boat, and this is what they're going to enable you to do with your family or with your friends or whoever you're going to use this boat. And that I think
mm-hmm,
that kind of content, if you're telling that story in a way that people can relate to and future pace themselves, whether it is wanting to be like someone else that they
mm-hmm,
aspire to be like or admire, or whether it is this is who I want to be, or
mm-hmm,
this is the experience that I want to have or share. Injecting some of that in all types of marketing is super powerful. I heard something the other day. I listened to a Story Brand podcast.
good.
I'm sure you know of Story Brand. Yeah,
Mm-hmm,
they said narrative marketing is the number one most effective way to grow any business. And I mean, I believe that obviously because that's what I do. But I think
exactly.
it's not just telling you how many cup holders there are, right? It's telling you
Mm-hmm,
how you get to share those drinks that you put in them with your friends
mm-hmm,
and family that are on the boat with you on a beautiful day out at sea, and then those memories that you make on that day out there. And you've shared some great insight to you made the funnel, which was fantastic, about the
mm-hmm,
different types of content to make at
mm-hmm,
different stages, and whether it is time for a funny meme or
mm-hmm.
and depending on I guess what your intention is.
Yeah, and it's important to know that you still need both, right? So, but the order matters. So you're not going to get in front of them and create a connection if they see that ad first. But if the ad is the story that resonates with them, and that's what a lot of big brands and other industries do well, right? Car companies, candy companies, you know, all the CPG brands, they do those things well because they're storytellers. And then the distribution and the candy and all that stuff matters, but you have to have something to sell at the end of the day. And you'll never get them if you just relying on, hey, my boat is faster than the next one, because there's a million options. So how do you stand out? When you have those big branded accounts, or say it's like almost like a campaign, those big brand pillar videos are what I call the fat boy, because they're going to deliver on that long-term brand promise or have that visual representation of what the brand's going to seek out to do. You're not going to get into the tactics or the features and stuff, but what you want to do is either captivate an audience in a human aspect, or you want to make something that delivers on your X factors. So what sets you apart from the other company? Those are those big, lofty. You need to have a craft a story around something that's going to get somebody emotional. And even within that part, you can go tug at the heartstrings. You can make something that is makes people really strongly agree, like, yes, this is awesome, almost like the Red Bull content. We call it shock and awe. Or you can deliver on that lifestyle of like, there's a million companies saying that they're adventure and luxury boats. But then how do you show it? Right? Are you gonna show it to like a normal Sunday at the sandbar with your friends, sipping drinks and stuff? That's great. Or are you gonna say, hey, let's make a trip over to the Bermuda Triangle, right? That's what this boat brand stands for. So when I check out of work, you have two options. How do you tell that brand story? And that needs to resonate with that end consumer and with that end in mind. But then when you get down to after that person's already watched those things, they're bought in, they understand that they know, like, and trust you, then you can get the hype video ads that say, hey, by the way, this boat's on sale this weekend at the Stewart Boat Show, and have the hype video around that. That's going to get a lot more eyeballs and people to transact. So the order matter, and you need a good balance of both.
Yeah. Oh, that's very insightful. And I think that going back to that why, right? The
Mm-hmm.
why of not only like what the boat is all about, but
Mm-hmm.
how do you think the why plays into what the brand stands for as well? Not just what the boats of the brand enable that person to do, but the connection that someone has to a brand name based on the story that they tell.
So if you think about Freeman Boatworks, big catamarans, they weren't the first boat builders to make a catamaran. Some may argue that they're still not even the best, but damn it, do they have a good story, right? So that Billy Freeman's American Dream story on YouTube, you would think that it'd be like some super viral video, but it's not. But everybody talks about it. So they talk about the history and how he built the first one in his shed, and his wife was like kind of, pressing him on, why are you doing this thing, but just let him do it. And then how he took that boat down to be tested in the real rough waters of the Gulf of Mexico with Louisiana charter captains. Like, you're not going to get a better test pilot than those guys, right? They fish hard and it's nasty weather, and they needed a true battleground. So him telling that story on film really captivated an audience that was a small group of people initially. They were charter captains. And because the design was good and the brand was great, that story permeated to now, which is one of the biggest catamaran companies that spawned a bunch of lookalike people after the fact. And they've been booked out for years with a year backlog, 4 years, and it's really based off of that American story, which is very human centric, of guys building something in his garage with his two hands, and look how far he's come, right? That's going to resonate with a lot of people who are self-made.
And that's so true. It's that emotional connection that we have and humanizing the brand, right? It is
Mm-hmm.
not just this is who we are and these are the boats we make. It's this is why we started this business. And this is
Mm-hmm.
something that you can feel connected to and something that you can get behind for the right reasons that mean something to you. I think one of the other things talking about that a lot of people and a lot of business owners don't understand or don't think that they have is their own powerful founder story, which is that why story.
100%.
And I I strongly disagree because anyone who's in business, who's been in business for a little while, started it
Mm-hmm.
for a specific reason,
Mm-hmm.
has a story. You just haven't had the right person try to find it for you.
Correct.
And I think that once you do find it and you can tell it in a way that is really powerful for people to connect to and get behind, then they see a brand at a completely different position than it was without a story like that. And I mean, how have you seen that? I guess that's the perfect example of Freeman, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you have those types of story, sometimes it may even take two or three iterations of it to really get the one that nails, that kind of like lands, so to speak. So, you know, from a marketing standpoint, we'll kind of look at it as in like, oh, deliverable. We're going to show up this day. There's one 5-minute YouTube video that we're trying to make, and here's a key takeaway. Well, you might have to do that 3 or 4 times to get the right angle that's going to resonate with the audience, whether that's the right vendor or the right kind of timing matters a lot. And like sometimes when you put stuff out and there's all kinds of stuff going on in the world already, it might not land. Like, think of Mark Zuckerberg not being at Harvard. Like if he was in someplace in Ohio, who cares? Like that's probably not going to happen, right? So I think a lot of the storytelling can kind of be found along the way, and then when it's a really really strong story, it's going to take off. Like you will know and see that for a very long time. And like even look in other industries for examples of that. Like the fashion brands, the Louboutins, these some of these really, really century old watch companies, Patek Philippe, they have rich brand history. And now from a marketing standpoint, you're not gonna go and take a client meeting, whether they come in through an ad or they come in to your storefront. You're not going to leave them with a brochure talking about the actual tactics, the actual features and hardware. And you're going to tell that magazine or that brand story is going to be a thick book, and it's going to tell you all about the history and the craftsmanship. And maybe on the last couple pages you'll get into, oh, it's a sandwich composite, and like how they actually built it. But that whole storytelling part in the beginning, that's where you're gonna trade on that for a very long time.
The fact that creating that content is so evergreen as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to something that's just quick and dirty, well, it's quick and beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
but it has a very limited shelf life.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, something that has the layers to it that talks about the right things, yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be more expensive to produce, but in the
Yeah.
end, you're going to get 10 times, 20 times, 100 times the shelf life.
Yeah.
And the things that it can do for the business is very different than something that's, yeah, just for this moment, for this very moment.
Mm-hmm. And that's where your question earlier about, do you invest in brand or you invest in that almost the quick hitting stuff? That's why you need the two.
What you wrote before, and what we talked about, network.
So your network is your net worth, meaning like what has a direct impact on like your finances, how much money you can make long term. And essentially it's you want to do business with people who are who you like. Obviously you want to do business with people who that you can give them the benefit of the doubt that they're either going to get the job done or let you know ahead of time. And then I think also when it comes to getting those opportunities, if they know who you are, they know you're going to trust you, they're going to be more susceptible to bring you to the table for new opportunities that are going to help them as well. So just like you said, we run a lot of ads for brands and stuff like that for boats, but our business is grown almost organically through networking a lot faster because of people who know us in this light and understand that, hey, these people are known for this, they're good at that, and I know that they're gonna stand by their word. And if something happens, like we understand. So the people you surround yourself with, the people you partner with to do business, like there has to be a professional uh, kind of relationship there. And the way I talked about it on a LinkedIn post recently, it was understanding the 3 Ps. You have to have profit, you have to like the people, and then you have to understand that passion part of it. So if you can at least get 2 of the 3, you're doing okay. But if you don't have the people in it, the profit doesn't really matter. The work that you're doing, you won't really like it as much. And I don't know about you, but like when you're like a small business and you have teams and worry about a lot of stuff going on, like you don't have the time or the luxury to be dealing with stuff that you don't really want to do. So that's kind of why I think your net worth is your net worth kind of came from.
This industry, a lot of people got into it because they love it, and it's a leisure time industry. So
Mm-hmm.
you're in it because, probably you're connected to the water. People that are really great people that want to see you succeed as much as
Mm-hmm.
you want to see them succeed, and they're just enjoyable to work with. The projects, they might not be the most fun projects ever
Mm-hmm.
as far as creativity goes or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
that experience when you do get to work with that first P, the people, man,
Mm-hmm.
that makes all the difference in the world. I definitely have that no dickhead policy in my disclaimer before we
Yeah.
before
No,
we
it's
sign up to work with somebody, because you as like you said, small business, you only have the bandwidth to work with so many
mm-hmm.
people,
Correct.
and do a great job.
Yeah.
I'd rather work with a few great people and
Yep.
have a great time doing it.
I believe in it the most. And you can see it even in social cues. So, like, if somebody's car is broken down on the side of the road and they're sitting in it, people are just going to drive right by it. But if you get out and start trying to push it, all of a sudden somebody's going to come and help and they're going to push it together. And then somebody else is going to come by the end. So that's that community aspect that you really like to see, but it happens in business as well. So that traction really, really helps.
I have a few rapid fire questions for you, Art. Are you
All
ready?
right. Yeah, I'm ready.
Some funny ones.
Okay.
What's your favorite fish to eat?
Ooh, wahoo, blackened.
I like it. Spicy.
It's so
Dream
good.
fish to catch.
I don't know, man. Those big blue marlins. I mean, you got granders and stuff swimming around out there. It just keeps me awake at night. I have a sailfish named Seymour on the wall here that gets a lot of attention.
Seymour, I love it.
Yeah, but a blue marlin would be epic.
We'll plan a trip up to the reef to catch a big grander. That would be amazing. One day you'll make it out here.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna do it.
What's the weirdest thing you've caught while fishing?
Octopus, a live octopus. Those things are very smart, very very smart. Like we try to put it in the fish tank.
I've seen a video of it, like one of them on the commercial boats, like kind of squeezing through the the open scuppers and stuff. What's the coolest boat you've been on?
I want to hurt no feelings. um, Coolest. All right, I'll say it. The Miami Fireboat. That is a 50-foot metal shark boat, and the amount of technology they have in that thing is insane. It's powered by marine jet powered water jets, so it's super fast, and it's shallow. It's skinny, so like it can run across the flats in Stiltsville. It can go under these low lying bridges in my downtown Miami. So like when you're inside and you look up, it's a low profile tower, but the top is all glass, and they use that when they're coming up against these big like cargo ships and stuff, that they have to look up and see what's going on if there's a fire or something like that, or another emergency situations. And then at the back they have this big deck and it looks like a bunch of wasted space. And I was asking him like, why do you have so all this empty room essentially back here? And it's for the training with the Coast Guard helicopter pilots so they can lower baskets up and down. And I found out that they do like trainings every Thursday with the Coast Guard. So when the emergencies and stuff happen, like they know what to do, like the back of their hand, almost like an NFL football team. Like they run plays and stuff. It's insane.
So cool.
I like that boat.
Oh, I love watching them. I love watching those water jets. I know you've got them as a client of yours. I love
Yeah.
all the content you guys put out around them. It's awesome. I've got another painful one that you might break some hearts with. What's your dream boat?
Ooh, well, there's a couple of them, right? So the fishing side of it, I'll do a 41 Invincible catamaran. That's definitely a battle wagon. Like that's the one that you want. You know, I want that thing bad. Um, for family and friends, sport fishing, a 60 Viking convertible, model specific. I think that'll be perfect. It's not too big, it's not too small, something that I can drive myself. But the pull up factor at a marina is there because there's nothing quite like a Viking. Um, And then for I would say the normal, I would say like when our parents and stuff would come to town or anything, I would do a Chris Craft classic wooden, an older model one that just turns heads and is beautifully restored. I have none of these boats yet, by the way, but you said dream boats.
In due
It'll be a
time.
fleet.
In due time.
Likely. Yeah.
I like it. Oh, I'll come on all three with you. All right. That sounds
So,
good.
let's do it.
um, what's your favorite boat name you've ever seen or heard of?
I like Blue Bayou. I thought that it was funny, and it was like way back in St. Martin, and it was just like this one couple, and me and my wife had just kind of gotten there. It was our first vacation, and I saw it was a couple, and they had this big cigarette, just a deep, and it said Blue Bayou, and it's this gorgeous paint color, and I'm like, that's just brilliant, clever, not too much, but
Very cool. If you had to pick one platform, what's the fishing social media platform?
I think Instagram platform for sure. There's because it's been around long enough, so the captains who are tech savvy have a lot of content and they've kind of grown their accounts. But a close second would be TikTok because of the virality on it. Like the numbers are astronomical. But even that said, there's not as many fishing creators on it compared to Instagram. You know what I mean?
If you're doing it yourself, you can't be
Right.
on all of them. It's so hard to choose.
Yeah.
Um, I've got a funny segment. This may or may not make the cut, but I thought I would run it by you because it's fantastic and it's something that I've always wondered if boat brands name their models after their owners' personalities. Kind of like, you see like the pictures of the owners with the
Mm-hmm.
pictures of the dogs that they have and they look the
Mm-hmm.
same. Well,
Mm-hmm.
what if like the boat brands named them what they really were, like who they were really meant for? What do you think they'd be called? So I like wrote a few down of that I thought would be funny to think about.
Yeah.
Pontoons, even jet boats, airboats,
Yeah.
sports fishers, stuff like that. I guess if we started with pontoon boats, what do you think they would be if they were really named appropriately?
Pontoons almost seem like floating recliners. So it's for like the laid back person who who has the recliners in their house. They're sitting in sweatpants and may have some mustard stain on it or like some Cheetos. Like, like that's the visual I think when I see a pontoon. It's completely not my
Yeah,
cup of
lazy
tea.
boy.
Lazy
Yeah,
boy, yes, that'll
lazy.
be a great
There's
name.
definitely a fridge in the side. There's a fridge in
Yep.
the side as well, like full of natty lights. Yeah, 100%. Sorry for all the pontoon owners.
I know, right? We killing them. And then jet skis, while they're fun, they get on my nerves. So I kind of look at them as like little gnats. So like they're always buzzing around and kind of annoying you. And then jet boats, like the smaller little Yamahas, we call them pocket rockets down here because they're small but they're fast. So it's like they're fun. You just kind of want to stick them in your pocket. But I have a bow rider, and one of my fishing captain buddies rags on me all the time because he's like, I know who wears their pants in your relationship because anybody who owns a bow rider, you know that they conceded to the family boat, even though I am definitely more of a center console type of fisherman person, and we have the CV, the 29 CV that we fish with offshore, but he always looks at me and calls it like, so how's a grocery getter today? Because it's essentially like a little minivan that you just drive around. It's like it's no real purpose. You can't fish off of it. It's not strong enough to tube behind. So
One last question for you, because you both love fishing and being in the industry, and I think being on the water and fishing, we talked about fish stories, and there's so much to learn while you're out there, and that you can relate back to everyday life and lessons learned. If you had one unexpected lesson that you thought about that fishing has taught you about business, what would you say that would be?
what I'd say is definitely persistence because you might think you know everything, but sure enough, you definitely don't know. So just continuing to try and continuing to learn, that's deeply rooted in marketing, deeply rooted in business, but even fishing. Like you can have all the conditions that are perfect, the right bait, the right area. You can see the fish on the radar, but they just might not be biting. So having the brains to think, okay, well, let me change this up, let me change that up, let me make these adjustments to get it going. I think that's it really translates into business as well.
Very, very insightful, Art. I love that.
Mhm.
How do you want to leave us today? What's a Art word of wisdom?
From a marketing standpoint, I think a lot of it is make sure you be very intentional on the content you create. You want to kind of look at it from a standpoint of making sure you solve both the business problem as well as the brand problem, right? Because that's going to last a lot longer than maybe doing some flash in the pan tactic that'll kind of give you short-term results without solving something that's a much bigger problem down the road. So just kind of looking at it holistically from a standpoint like that. And then just keep it going, man.
Well, thank you so much, Art. That was amazing, buddy. I really appreciate you being on. I'm sure you all enjoyed that conversation and took a bunch of things away from it. If you loved it, please subscribe where you heard or saw it. Rising Tide Film on YouTube and Spotify and all the places, and Rogue Marine Advisors. Definitely give Art a follow and his team. Always putting great stuff out there. Please let me know what you guys enjoyed about our conversation and who you'd love to have on the podcast next. So thanks again, Art. Appreciate you being on, and always a great chat with you.
Thanks.
Catch you guys on the next one.